It's ridiculous that I can't tell you how many people were shot by the police in this country. Last week, last year, the last decade. It's ridiculous.
That's James Comey, speaking at Georgetown University in 2015. This lack of transparency has made it extremely difficult to understand the scope of police violence, and a lack of clarity undermines our ability to hold police accountable for egregious violence. In the 5 years since Comey's response, not much has changed. But this most recent wave of massive protests has created a rare opportunity to re-examine both the accidental and deliberate mechanisms that protect law enforcement from the consequences of police violence. Ensuring public safety is a critical part of society, and for centuries, police have been tasked with that responsibility. But with police has come the problem of police violence. A Bureau of Justice Statistics public survey estimated that there were nearly 1 million threats of violence and use of force incidents by police against civilians in 2015 alone. Advocates for change have different ideas on the best way to reduce this number, from immediate police reforms all the way to abolishing the police altogether. For reformers, progress comes down to increasing police accountability. So, what more can be done? For one, changing how police unions create accountability roadblocks. A study on 178 police union contracts found that 156 of them included at least one provision that could be used by police officers to stifle disciplinary action for misconduct. These provisions can impose time limits on investigations, establish rules on when and how an officer can be interrogated after fatal encounters, and require complainants' personal information to be turned over to the offending officer, which discourages people from coming forward with complaints out of fear of retribution. When officers are fired for misconduct, many union contracts require arbitration, but that arbitration is based on evaluating officers' disciplinary records, which is made more difficult by union contracts that require departments purge records after 2 to 5 years. These arbitrations do result in officers being rehired. In a report by the Washington Post examining the firings of 1,881 police officers, the Post found that departments were forced to rehire 450 of those officers, even though some of them had been fired for offenses as serious as physical assault, sexual abuse, and fatal shootings. Even after all of that, the officers that are successfully removed can be easily rehired by other departments. Another way to increase accountability is to improve data transparency. Since 1994, there have been a handful of federal legislative attempts to track police-involved fatalities in the U.S., but they've all fallen short, primarily because most law enforcement agencies just don't participate. Some news and research organizations have stepped up to fill that gap by doing their own investigations. One group found 1,795 incidents of fatal police encounters in 2019 alone. This is up to 125 times the rate of other developed countries. These investigations confirm a troubling police violence problem in America, but even more troubling is the fact that this data isn't shared with the public to begin with. Not just police fatalities and use of force incidents, but misconduct records as well. A report by WNYC found that 22 states keep police records confidential, with state laws specifically exempting police record disclosures, even through Freedom of Information Act requests. Cities like New Orleans, though, are showing the tremendous value in choosing to collect and share this kind of data with the public. The Office of the Independent Police Monitor provides yearly reports about complaints, misconduct, and disciplinary action. In 2016, they were able to use police data to determine that 90 out of 1,200 officers were responsible for half of the use of force incidents that year. Even when we do know about a police officer's transgressions, problematic officers can claim qualified immunity. Because of this doctrine, victims of police violence are often unable to utilize lawsuits as a method to hold police accountable. Qualified immunity was created by the Supreme Court to protect government officials acting in good faith from expensive litigation. But the burden for proving that government officials, particularly police officers, didn't act in good faith can be exceptionally high. Take, for example, the case of Kari Illich in 2013. Illich was unarmed and experiencing a mental health crisis along a quiet wooded road when deputy sheriffs in Alabama found him. They hogtied and tased him 19 times before he died of cardiac arrest. In court, the deputies claimed qualified immunity, and both the Federal District Court and U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals sided with them because there was no prior ruling specifically establishing that hogtying and tasing someone that many times was unlawful. Cases like Illich's demonstrate how difficult it is to overcome the standard for qualified immunity, even when the victim's constitutional rights have seemingly been violated. When looking for ways to improve police accountability, it's important to remember that single measure reforms aren't enough, and nothing showcases this more than body-worn cameras. Multiple studies show that without regulation, body-worn cameras don't actually make a huge difference in use of force incidents. Perhaps because typically, footage isn't released to the public, since there often aren't rules enforcing their use. For example, the Phoenix Police Department initially required that officers record all civilian interactions, but just 1 year later, officers were only capturing less than 14%. Recent protests have helped broaden reform efforts to remove these obstacles to police accountability. In just 1 month, we saw Minneapolis Police Chief Medario Arredondo pull out of contract talks with the police union. Governor Cuomo signed the repeal of Section 50A into law, a provision that was being used to hide police records of misconduct, but already faces a battle with unions in the courts. Governor Lamont signed an executive order requiring reports of all use of force incidents. And Governor Polis signed a comprehensive reform bill that, among many other reform measures, blocks qualified immunity for government officials. These are huge police accountability reform measures happening at a rate we've never seen before, but advocates believe much more transformative change is needed. They're not wrong. There's still lots of work to be done. But while we work towards a larger solution, these accountability reforms can reduce police violence and, most importantly, save lives now. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in learning more about the ways that we can make meaningful change to our criminal justice system, be sure to check out our ongoing coverage on fixing justice at freethink.com.